morning, everyone. I appreciate you being here today. I just want to take a moment before we begin to acknowledge that Queen's Park is situated on rich indigenous land. Most recently, the treaty territory of the Mississaugas is a new credit, and just how important it is, I believe, for us to have an indigenous worldview when we make decisions today and how they affect the next 7 generations. I want to thank you for being here today, and I just want to say how honored I am to host CEOs for basic income as they call on this government to restore the basic income pilot project. You know, the Ford government has put ideology over evidence time and time again, repealing legislation and canceling contracts. But I think the campaign promise they broke that surprised people the most was to cancel the basic income pilot. They blindsided 4,000 participants without any warning that they would cancel a program that these people were depending on to make improvements in their life, to return to school, to get better employment, to start a career, to be a better housing accommodation, and to do all of that without releasing any economic analysis around the justification of doing it, I thought was wrong. So I just want to be clear, the Green Party has long supported a universal basic income as the best, most efficient, cost-effective way to eliminate poverty and cut red tape for people living in poverty. We see basic income as a less bureaucratic approach to solving poverty and income inequality. And it's why in the last election we released a fully costed platform that for the first time in Ontario's history showed how we could fund a basic income program across the province while still putting this province on a path to a balanced budget. And I think as you will hear from the CEOs today, a universal basic income is not just a solution to help people get out of poverty. It's also a forward-thinking response to the challenges that we face in today's economy, where part-time and precarious work is on the rise, where technology and automation is threatening traditional middle-class jobs, and where people need the economic security to be entrepreneurs and start new jobs and new businesses. And as somebody who has started 2 businesses myself, I can tell you from my own personal experience how important basic economic security is to being able to have the confidence to be able to take a risk and to start a business. And so that's why I'm so pleased to support the 100 business leaders who have signed on to your letter calling on this government to restore the basic income pilot. And I want to turn it over now to Floyd Marinescu from C4 Media to continue the rest of our conference with our CEO leaders. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Floyd Marinescu, and I run an 8-figure global business based in Canada. We're here today to present the government with this letter because we believe that basic income is important to the future of our economy. Copies of this letter are in your media kits and can be seen at ceosforbasicincome.ca, along with a list of the signatories. I hope you'll read it. Today represents the first time that a group of business leaders have come together to tell the public that basic income is an economic need in the 21st century. We are not celebrities like Elon Musk, Richard Branson, or Mark Zuckerberg, who endorse basic income. The signatories of our letter represent nearly all sectors of the Canadian economy, from retail to artificial intelligence, with average revenues with each company in the group of about $13 million a year. These are people who will probably pay a greater share of taxes if a basic income is launched. Yet we still support it for the reasons outlined in the letter. The objective of this effort is for Premier Ford to decide to continue the pilot so that we can all learn from it. Regardless of whether you are for or against the idea, Ontarians deserve a debate informed by this research. We hope the Canadian public comes to understand that basic income is a fundamental economic imperative, not just a matter of social assistance. There are structural changes working their way through the economy that are affecting work and depressing wages. This is a critical issue for the middle class as well as for everyone in our society. In the letter we delivered to Premier Ford, we state unequivocally that a basic income would grow the economy and create jobs. That is good economics. It's good for business and it's good for the people of Ontario. We 100 CEOs, therefore, are joining 1,000 economists who in 1968 signed a letter endorsing a version of a basic income in the United States. My father and uncle lost their jobs in Ontario's manufacturing sector in the early 2000s when China entered global supply chains. We simply couldn't compete with labor that costs 1/10 what we do. They had no idea this was coming, and I remember them encouraging me when I was in high school to become a tool and die maker because society will always need more metal parts. As is the case for people whose jobs have been displaced, both were never able to find jobs earning as much as they had or putting the skills that they had to use. Today we're seeing a version of this story playing out again and again throughout our economy because of the trends outlined in the letter. We are here to tell you that basic income is about revitalizing the economy. It's not about putting people to work, it's about the future of work. The economy is trending towards a low-income society for many of us, and that is a threat to us all. A basic income is a way to grow the economy and enhance our self-reliance, respect, and confidence. If you listen to experts talking about the potential impacts of artificial intelligence on jobs, you'll likely hear some disagreement. Firstly, no one is predicting a lot of high-paying jobs. The debate seems squared between whether half of all jobs will be lost outright or whether there'll simply be a lot more jobs because of the productivity created, but they'll mostly be low-paying jobs. In the past 30 years, we can already see this trend of displacement and replacement with lower-skilled work in Ontario and in all Western economies. We may very well be facing a society where the bottom 60 to 80% of us are facing poorer living conditions, while the top 20 to 40% have all of the opportunity. We know countries like that, and they're not the Canada that we want to see. Globalization means people are now facing greater global competition than my father or uncle ever did. The internet is changing which jobs need to be localized. I personally know a dozen solopreneurs, super small businesses who have virtual assistants in the Philippines charging $4 to $8 an hour. The true impact of automation and globalization is not people losing their jobs to the robots, but rather the tens of thousands of jobs that would never have been hired locally in the first place because of globalization and automation. We are competing with 2 billion new entrants into the global labor force worldwide, most of whom can work for less than what can be lived on locally. And soon, a lot of good-paying work, like administration, accounting, all manner of industries affected by artificial intelligence, will have the cost of that sort of work trend nearly to zero, and no one can compete with that. If we can collectively face the facts and recognize that this trend is happening now, a basic income will become a moral and economic imperative. It will be the best way to ensure that our remarkable economy can work for everyone. We are here today as business leaders to tell you that a basic income will grow the economy. It will stimulate spending. Those who have the least proportionally spend the most, and that ends up back in local businesses. What could be more pro-business than preserving and expanding your customer base? A basic income will encourage more entrepreneurship. How many Steve Jobses are out there stuck trying to feed their families? I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but in my mid-20s, I was fortunate enough to be part of a startup that allowed me to buy an investment property. Your 20s can be a financially precarious time, but because I had a basic rental income, I had the confidence and security to quit and start my own business and create jobs. A basic income is how people can take their futures into their own hands. We'll see an economy that will reach its true hidden growth potential because we will unleash the entrepreneurial capacity of our citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, a basic income will add confidence to the economy and preserve our self-reliance. Self-reliance is one of our most cherished values, the covenant that people who work hard should be able to get ahead. I ask you, how can you maintain self-reliance if the only jobs available are low-income jobs that are often not even paying a living wage? A basic income is how we can maintain self-reliance in a future of no or low-paying work. Consumer confidence will be enhanced, helping us through recessions. As a society, we will likewise be more confident. You will know that no one is structurally stuck in poverty. You will know that you can take a step back and take risks, like switch cities to where the jobs are, or take a course to improve your skills, or take an unpaid internship. Everyone will have the confidence to invest in the long-term outcomes in their lives. We won't see universal basic income as welfare or social assistance. It would replace the welfare bureaucracy with simple cash payments, distributing power to people directly. It would be something we could rely on without shame, just as today we rely on roads and public health care, public police protection. Today, if you injure yourself, no one would say that you're not self-reliant because you used a hospital and didn't pay for it. Similarly, there would be no shame in using this money, no government lines to wait in. Basic income is not a handout, it's a head start for everyone. To conclude, a basic income is a way that we can make sure that these structural changes work for everyone so that no one is left in precarity, like my father and uncle were when the rug was pulled out from under the feet of Ontario's manufacturing sector. Collectively, we are asking that the Ontario Basic Income Pilot be reinstated. While we have no partiality to the scheme designed by the previous government, we do feel it's good enough to test the main theses of basic income. So it's urgent that we do this. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Chris Ford.
Thank you, Floyd. Hi, I'm Chris Ford, CEO of Capco Canada. At Capco, we see the effect of technology innovation and digitization firsthand. As a company that provides transformation services to the banking and insurance industry, we are on the front line of automation. Banks are going paperless, and the goal is straight-through processing. Straight-through processing is processing without people. Electronic document handling and business rules automation have already eliminated thousands of jobs. Advancement in artificial intelligence promises to eliminate thousands more. We used to talk about offshoring. Now we talk about zero-shoring. In other words, we eliminate the job completely. My family immigrated to Canada 100 years ago to escape poverty and a declining coal mining industry in Wales. The decisions my grandparents made have afforded me a life of opportunity and security. As a father and a Canadian, I feel an obligation to protect the incredible quality of life we enjoy in Canada for future generations. Our economy and the path to prosperity are changing for Canadians in ways we cannot anticipate. As business leaders, we are constantly looking to the future for the risk and opportunities that will shape our companies. You will hear from my colleagues today about the many risks that our economy is facing. Not only can basic income begin to address these risks, but it represents an enormous opportunity for all Ontarians. We need to be courageous about applying innovation in government and social services. Studies in basic income are necessary so that we can make informed decisions on policy. The future will be determined by the choices and the leadership we demonstrate now. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Mike Garnett.
I'm deeply concerned about Canadians whose jobs will be displaced by robots. It's not a matter of if, but when. Technology will not eliminate the need for human labor, but will dramatically change the landscape. What is considered a well-paying job today may shift to being either a low-paying job or eliminated altogether. I'm the co-founder of a company called Bay Street Labs, since rebranded as Auvenir. And Auvenir is backed by one of the largest professional services firms, Deloitte. We are creating technology that is meant to disrupt the accounting space with the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. As the technology gets more sophisticated, lower skilled jobs in the professional services space will not be needed. It is in my view that all professional services careers such as law and accounting will be significantly impacted by the technology created from entrepreneurs such as those here today. Universal basic income is at the very least a way to supplement wages to ensure those who are impacted by the displacement of jobs have the ability to retain the gain for meaningful employment. Universal basic income is not a partisan issue, and we need to have the courage to innovate on reforming social services policies within Canada.
And we'll hear from Audrey Mascarenhas.
Good morning. My name is Audrey Mascarenhas, and I run an 8-figure global business that is one of Canada's top 500 fastest growing companies. At Questor, we are passionate about sustainability and the environment so that we can help create a great future for the next generations. Our company deploys our patented innovative solutions globally to protect communities by improving air quality and reducing GHG emissions, but then using that heat energy to generate power and treat water for communities that are struggling around the world. In other words, creating value from waste. Communities are only as strong as their weakest link, which in many places is the poor and disadvantaged living in poverty. In Canada, 1 in 6 kids are growing up in poverty, oftentimes with a single parent who struggles to earn enough to provide for and take care of the family. How can this be occurring in a resource-rich country such as ours? What future will these kids have if we do not find a way to break the cycle and help them become successful adults, contributing to our country's economic growth? What is the future societal cost to our economy when we leave them behind? I speak from experience today because I grew up in poverty in a family that struggled when we immigrated to Canada from Kenya in 1974. And my family has spent time in a shelter. With a lot of hard work, luck, some wise words, and the kindness of a pharmacist, Greg Feld, at the drugstore that I worked at, instead of dropping out of school, I was eventually able to go to university and get a great education that has allowed me to help my family, contribute to Canada's economy, and help create a sustainable future for the world by protecting the environment. Just as the environment is facing risks, so too is our economy. You've heard today about the many structural changes that have and will continue to fundamentally change the nature of work and how we generate prosperity. It is our collective responsibility to envision and implement a sustainable future for the environment, our country, and most importantly, each and every person in our country. It is also our responsibility to rigorously study and implement a solution for a sustainable economy. An economy where we do not leave a significant portion of our population behind. I believe a hallmark of a society is that anyone with hard work can improve their lot. Indeed, that opportunity is the reason myself and my colleagues are on the stage today. But many of the challenges we've spoken about risk narrowing that opportunity to fewer and fewer Canadians. Technological innovation, automation, and artificial intelligence all have the potential to vastly improve our lives, but they also demand that we think judiciously and act boldly so that their benefits can be enjoyed by all. One way or another, these trends will require that we, as a society, change. I am here to join my colleagues in urging the government to preserve the basic income pilot so that these difficult choices will be informed ones. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Paul Vallée, co-author of the letter.
Thank you, Floyd. My name is Paul Vallée. I'm the founder of a 450-person company based in Ottawa called Pythian. Pythian is a tech-enabled services business where the services that we deliver are to help our customers compete with data. And competing with data today means implementing machine learning and AI and other advanced analytics capabilities. And the technology that enables our service is a cybersecurity technology that essentially permits us to use the power of the internet to move workers from one place to another. In other words, it really is an internet-based labor mobility platform called Tehama. As you can see, internet-based labor mobility plays into the dynamics around jobs going offshore. And as you can see, I've spent my career building data, competitive strategies to use data. And when I became an entrepreneur, I didn't realize I was accidentally a sociopath breaking our society. That was not my goal. It just happened accidentally that automators like us ended up creating this capability that, while amazing from a societal perspective, also runs the risk of damaging our ability to create jobs. I entered into this movement as well because of my own entrepreneurship. I founded my fourth company, Pythian, as a 25-year-old. None of the companies before that had any access to capital either, which means that really I bootstrapped the business through the support of my partner, Nicole, and both of us living like students for a number of years after we were no longer students. Not everyone has that opportunity, and I believe that a basic income can really help support that. My work in automation and AI led to an insight that we have been working on as computer scientists. We've been working on literally automating the work of automation. So if you think things have been going fast so far, over the course of the next few years, you'll see us really accelerate even further as computer scientists work to automate the work of computer scientists themselves. And now things are going to very much accelerate. Finally, I'd like to just tend a hand to this government and to the supporters of this government. I think we're really all on the same team. These 100 CEOs are really all on the same team. We care about the Ontario's economy, and we also recognize that our economy already believes that our society doesn't really start at zero. We have things like our welfare system, like food banks, like subsidized housing, but recognize that all of those artifacts are really government regulation on poverty. And we believe in deregulation. And we believe in capitalism that doesn't start at zero. And a basic income is a beautiful deregulated way of achieving that. To say that basic income costs too much, or to say that basic income creates a work disincentive, is disingenuous when those are exactly what this experiment was trying to quantify. So why don't we just learn what the results of the experiment are going to be? Thank you.
Very much. We'll take press questions now, or you guys want to ask questions as well, or anyone?
Yeah, can you talk a bit about how the letter came together, who led it, how you reached out, and how people signed on?
So I led this effort, and Paul and I co-authored the letter and exhausted our personal networks. We're not socialites; we just worked the connections that we have, and I found that three-fourths of every business leader I asked signed the letter. Those who understand the issue, generally, I think are pro basic income, and the one quarter who didn't understand the issue enough and weren't willing to put their name behind it. So between the two of us, we were able to get a bit over 100 signatures. I'm sure an organization with more resources who could actually poll Canadian business leaders would probably show a much larger business consensus than I think the society actually believes is there. So I really just wanted to reflect back to Canadians the consensus that's already there, and particularly the narrative that this will grow the economy. This is an economic issue more than a social assistance issue.
Okay, you're pro basic income. What about the minimum wage? You guys in favor of the minimum wage going up again to $15 an hour?
I believe, so I have an opinion about this. I believe that a basic income is a nicer solution than a higher minimum wage. I believe that high minimum wage accidentally cuts out certain people who would like to contribute to our society and are unable to as a result of, for example, disabilities or other issues. For instance,
You wouldn't be in favor of both?
no, I personally think a basic income is a cleaner solution than elevating the minimum wage.
But you talk about low-income workers. I mean, they need a higher minimum wage. They don't need a basic income. They have a job.
So Mr. Ford said a few weeks ago that he was going to cancel raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour so that we could be globally competitive. I agree with his assessment, not necessarily his decision. We are competing with people all over the world who charge a lot less than we do. And a basic income will allow young people in Canada to build their skill set, compete at those lower wages on open job marketplaces like Upwork, for instance, and then command a higher price for their services once they've built experience. What's happening here, and Paul, you can talk to this, is that we're pulling out the ladder rungs at the early stages of people's careers. A basic income would help entrepreneurs. It would also help people who are not in a traditional job, like caregivers and entrepreneurs of all stripes, people doing community service. So a basic income will be a much more effective economic stimulus than increasing a minimum wage. But I think there's a place for both of them. And Paul, you had a really good.
Yeah. It's my this result of some work that I've done that shows that the consequences of replacing labor with a capital good, and automation is very much a capital investment that a business can make instead of a labor investment. But the consequence of replacing labor with a capital good isn't necessarily that there are fewer jobs. It's that it breaks rungs on the social ladder. And what ends up happening is that progression, that opportunity to progress your career from an entry-level job to a mid-career job through to a senior executive's job is broken. I myself feel like a basic income is an elegant way of resolving that and to permit a new generation of entrepreneurs to emerge.
Tons of tweets because I was tweeting about this and everyone said, wow, it's easy for them to sit there and call for this because it's the government that's paying for it. It's not them paying for it. How would you respond to that?
Well, all of us are willing to pay more in our taxes, so it's definitely not the government, it's us.
The government is all of us anyway.
But it's easy for you to pay more in taxes, okay? You guys are pretty wealthy people, I'm sure, right? That's not the issue here.
So the tweets are saying that there's objections to wealthy people volunteering to pay more taxes?
You're anti-minimum wage because that's going to come out of your business, but you're pro-basic income because that'll be the Ontario government.
Yeah, I don't employ anybody at the minimum wage. Do any of you? No.
We are
No,
not
that's
anti-minimum wage. We're just saying that basic income.
You don't really want to see it go up.
No, I support it. I support the
Yeah,
increase in minimum wage.
I support $15. I think we need a basic income. It captures a larger share of the economy and people than minimum wage does. It'll help everyone. It'll help the middle class.
Everyone here would support $15.
Yeah.
No.
I
I like
would.
lower minimum wages.
I would echo that as well. I'm okay with lower minimum wages and having a universal basic income to top up
Yep.
the particular programs, and because I believe that as minimum wage goes up, I think that jobs will be cut, and then you're having more people dependent on social
Exactly.
welfare systems.
Exactly.
You think Premier Ford's going to listen to this?
I hope so.
I'll meet him anytime.
You like to say he's talked to businesses. Has he actually talked to you?
No. And I'm not sure which business he spoke to, but as I said, I believe there is a consensus in the business community. No one's asked. So with that, we have to wrap up. So thank you very much.